Good morning and welcome to PhotoJoseph's Photo Moment, the first live daily photo show on YouTube every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Pacific, unless I'm on vacation, as I have been for the last couple of weeks. But I'm back and I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. A little R&R is good for the soul. It's time to get this machine back in gear though. So today we are opening up the new week with a Q&A session. We were doing these for a while. Basically what I would do is when I saw a question, a kind of a more complex question than a simple yes or no or one-line answer, in the comments I would tag it for answering in a future show. And then for some reason I kind of got out of the habit of that. I don't really know why. I don't have an excuse or a reason. I just did. But I thought, you know, this was a good format, and I spent less time messing around trying to answer things by text. So we're going to do that again. But I will say what I mentioned last week when I had a little impromptu show. If you are watching this and you go, ooh, I want to ask questions in the future, by all means, I want your questions. You got a good question, stick it into a comment. Doesn't matter where it goes. It doesn't even matter if it's related to the video that you're commenting on. That can be helpful, but it really doesn't matter. But if you're going to post a question, give me a complete question. Tell me as much information as you can so that I can help you. If I need to ask you additional questions to answer your question, I'm not going to be able to do it live on the air. So whatever your question is, give me as much info as you can, and that will help me to help you. And then we can have a lot more of these Q&A shows. Awesome. Deal? Deal. Okay, so we are going to, let's just see what's going on in the comments, because the comments are already flying by here. We'll say good morning over here, and then we're going to jump on into more comments. So Bernardo has a question about travel lenses. I said, already said in the pre-show, Bernardo, hold on to that. Post it up at the end. We'll do that later. Neil Higgins, good evening, good morning to you. And Jason McCurry Films, well, hello, Jason. Hey, man, hope you had a great trip. I did have a great trip. It was fantastic. Thank you for asking. Okay, let's just get into this. Let me bring up my slides, get this thing properly set up. That is set up. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Question. Oh, and by the way, I'm not going to break this out into a bunch of separate videos because all these questions are fairly short. So this is just going to be one long thing. So if your question was tagged for answering and you don't have time to watch the whole thing, just scroll down, and after there will be a link with your question with a time code link. You just click on that and go straight to that time code. Okay, cool. And that, of course, is for people who aren't watching live. All right, question from M7MMD ZS. Just names flow off the tongue. Great video, thanks. Okay, cool. I just wanted to ask, I bought a second gen iPad Pro 12.9 and I have a DJI P4P, Phantom 4 Pro. Would I be able to edit, excuse me, 4K 60 FPS on iMovie? And also, would I be able to view 4K 30 H.265 on the iPad? Okay, first part, the second part of that question, the H.265 on the iPad thing, I don't actually know. I haven't tried that, but I will say that if it doesn't work with iOS 10, it will be supported in iOS 11 because that's what the iPhones are going to start shooting is H.265. So iOS 11, kind of everything starts switching over to H.265, which is great news because we'll finally have proper H.265 support across the entire platform. H.265 isn't that commonly used yet. It is in Lumix cameras on the GH5 in the 4K photo mode. Those are H.265, but they've been in use by some of the DJI, is it the Mavic? No, not the drones. The GoPros maybe? Some of the action cam stuff or drone cameras are using H.265, and that's been a problem for some people. So I think Samsung is using it as well. So H.265 support is coming across the board with iOS 11 and Mac OS. What the heck? What's the next Mac OS called? Whatever. Anyway, so we're getting that. But the first part of the question is a very high Sierra. That's what it's called. The first part of the question is a very good question, asking again, can I do 60p with 60p 4K with iMovie? And when I did a video, and I think this might have been linked to the video, I was talking about Lumafusion, this relatively new app for doing full-on 4K 60p editing on the iPad. It's a phenomenal app. And at the time, I had been playing with iMovie and determined that you couldn't do 60p, which really kind of bummed me out because I've got this amazing GH5, shoots 4K 60p, and I couldn't do it. And since then, someone told me that you can. You just have to turn it on. 60p is not enabled by default. So here's how this works. I got my iPad over here. Let's fire this guy up. Now you would think, let me get back into iMovie. iMovie was here. Hello. Okay, iMovie, it's there, and we're synced. Let's go over. So here's iMovie. You would think that if I just brought in a 4K 60p clip in here, and you think if I have to go to the settings, maybe there's something that would know. There's nothing in the settings. There's nothing when you create a project. There's nothing here about 60p. Well, here's the dumb thing. It's just a crappy place to put this, but you go into the system settings, And then you scroll down, so we're on, let's go to the top, we're on the main settings page, and you scroll down, scroll down, scroll down until you get all the apps start showing up, and then you find iMovie down here. There's iMovie. And then look at that second option, enable 60p export. And what it says is really quite interesting. It says, allow sharing of 60 FPS movie files when the majority of a project contains footage recorded at 60p or higher. So this is one of those, there's no indicator, as far as I can tell, of that it's going to export 60p. If the majority, which hopefully means over 50%, if the majority of your footage that you dropped in is 60p, so obviously if all of it is, then you should have no problem, then what it will export is 60p. I would like to see a setting for this, but it's iMovie. It's meant to be just simple. You know, it's meant to not have complex interfaces to it. So I guess that's why it's buried there. Frankly, I think that should be on the main screen, but it isn't, but that's where it is. So whoever it was that told me about that ages ago, thank you for telling me that. And for our viewer questioner, M7MMD ZS, I hope that helps. Excellent. All right, next question. Can I use this monitor? And by this monitor, you can see over on the right, the super cheap HDMI monitor that I showed a while ago with the Panasonic G7. So the simple answer to that is, yes, you can. Anything with HDMI out should work with this device. Where is it? I actually have it here. Should work with this. You know, I'm sure you might run into things that don't, but I figured, hey, I'm going to actually show you how it works. And I went to grab the G7 and realized I don't have the G7 here. The G7 is what Ryan is using these days. And I didn't know I was going to be answering this question, so he didn't bring it in. But I've got a GX8 here, which is essentially the same for the HDMI out. So I thought I'd show you how, just show you that it does work. It's not really so much a how. But unlike with the GH5, remember the GH5 has got a full-on, full-size HDMI port. We don't have that with any other camera. So with the LUMIX GX8 or G7, you're going to have a mini HDMI port. Let's see here, why does that camera look like it's falling over? Why does the camera not look like it's turned on? Oh, excellent. This is quality setup here. Let's get that camera turned on. There it is. And get the right one, remote camera, there it is. Get this guy in here. So here we've got just the little itty bitty port. Let's zoom this thing in a little bit. There we go. All we've got here is the little itty bitty HDMI port there, which means you need a HDMI cable that has the little itty bitty, I don't know what this is called, HDMI B or C or mini or micro or some micro. I think that's micro. I think that's what that is. And then the other side is going to be a standard HDMI port. This is, where's this one from? This is from a company called Cable Matters. I don't know, it's probably some Amazon Prime thing, whatever, it doesn't matter. So HDMI micro, pretty sure, to regular. This is that cheap $50 display, and I've already linked to the video below. We'll link to it up here as well if you want to see the kind of review-ish of this, which is a complete and total ripoff of, I think, a DSLR shooter's website, YouTube channel, because they talked about it already, and I bought one, and I just thought I'd share it with you guys. So definitely watch their video for more information about it. But this is a really cheap display, like really cheap. This is basically designed to go in your car for a backup camera or something like that. The display itself is not 1080p. I don't remember what the resolution is, but it is notably lower than 1080p. However, it will accept 1080p. That's the key. So we've got here, you've got a little mode button, and you just cycle that through AV1, AV2, VGA, and eventually HDMI. And we just plug this in, plug that in, and plug this in here. And of course, I can't show you the menu system properly. Let's plug that, find the right port to plug that into. Looks remarkably like the output digital, but anyway, port. Like I would like to do, like I normally do, the kind of like you actually see the proper screen. I can't do that because the HDMI cable's coming out to here, but that's okay. So let's just do this. Oops, oh, I guess that's not that long. Let's see here, can I, nope, can't really do that. Well, all right, you're just gonna have to do it this way. So it works. I mean, that's really all there is to it. So what I can show you, which you're totally not gonna be able to see here, but if I go into the menu, we are seeing the menu in here. And so what I do need to tell you is how to enable the menu out, which is different than the GH5 if you've been looking at that. So I think what I'll do, all right, you can see it works, right? Believe me, that works now. Great. It beeps every time you touch something, just super annoying. That was close. Let's not break my iPad. Let me plug this into here, and I'm going to show you how to set the HDMI out settings on this camera. There we go. So back to iOS only. So now we're looking at, sorry, not iOS, back to this camera. We are looking at the menu system in here. If you go to the, I think it's the setup, yep, setup, and then TV connection, this is where your HDMI settings are. So if you're used to working on a pro camera, GH4 or GH5, one of the higher end ones, you would find a menu that actually says HDMI settings. On these cameras, it doesn't do that. It just says TV settings. And so let's go back to this. You see it says TV connection. TV aspect, it doesn't seem to matter if you change this or not. It worked both ways when I was testing it earlier. And then here's one of the key things, HDMI info display. Do you want this on or off? So what you're seeing right now is the HDMI out with this menu on here, which means you see all the information. You see, right, the focus points, you see everything showing up on here. If I go in and I turn that off, HDMI info display, and set that to off, then you get clean HDMI out. So if your purpose of using the HDMI out is to record, right, you're recording to an external recorder, then clearly you have to turn that menu off. If, however, you're using a monitor like that, then you may as well have it turned on. That's kind of the point. You're using it not to record, but to view, and then you would turn that on and you'd be able to see all the settings of the camera on the bigger screen. Now keep in mind that that screen is pretty junky, right? It's you have to be straight on to that thing. You get off center just a little bit and the image dims considerably. You certainly can't do anything color accurate, but it is a great way to simply get a bigger screen for super cheap if you just want to have a bigger display to look at when you're setting up a shot. So that's all there is to that. So super duper. All right, next up. Matt Nelson says, thank you for the excellent work you do. Why, you're quite welcome, Matt. I own the GH5. I'm just wondering, what's the difference between the 225 area focus and one area focus if the box/zone/area you create in each mode is the same size and location? Is there even a difference? So this answer is kind of a half answer. I couldn't get I don't know 100% how different it is, but I am going to show you some differences that we can see, and then we'll talk about what there might be differences in. So let me pull this thing up here. Let's get the GH5 connected, swap these cables out. I had this all set up before, and then I put the GX8 up, which is different. And I should have rearranged these questions because I'm going to have to go back to the GX8 later. All right, let's see here. Fire that up, waiting for that to sync up to the switcher. Sync, there it is. And we're good. Okay, so let's go back into here. So now we're looking at this GH5. So what he's talking about is if I go into the focus modes, I've got this thing, which is called 225 area, which right now is set to all areas, which see if I kind of get it to show more. You can see it's kind of popping around for different areas around the screen as it tries to grab on things. Okay, so that's my, actually I should probably go into, let's just do this real quick. After party so you can actually see things. You can see the focus areas popping up at different points depending on where I point it. And if I go back into that focus thing and I go to AF area down, I can choose an area, a specific area to focus on, right? And then that's that. But that's still the 225 area. So what he's asking about is comparing this to the one area focus. If you create one, so hold on. Actually, I may have realized I just misread this question. So I can make this really big. Okay, so one area, I think I may have misread his question, or I'm going to assume something of what he meant. But anyway, so here's the one area. I can make that as big as I want as a square, but it will not encompass the entire screen, right? So that's my one area. I can set that up. And as you may recall, Panasonic has advised for now that the superior autofocus performance is going to be in this one area. But there's another way to do this, and I think this is what he actually meant, not the one area. There's another way to set this up, which I have found often gives better autofocus performance than the 225 area in video when you're trying to just shoot kind of random like vloggy stuff. You just need the camera to just grab whatever it should grab. And that is to go into, let's go back to this, that is to go into the custom area and turn everything off. So we go here in custom, you can see by default you've got these little patterns set up. Okay, see the little patterns in there? And you can create your own custom patterns. So let me take one of these that I'm not using. Let's go into this, go to autofocus area, and I can go around and select all these areas. But even if I turn all of these, well, if I turn all of these on, my understanding of the question is, would turning all of these on be the same as going full 225 area? That's what I'm kind of interpreting the question to be. First of all, it's not going to be all. You're missing an outer ring, so you're not going to get all the areas. It's one column, one row less. But more importantly, turning them all on isn't what you want to do. You actually want to leave them all off. It's weird, but when they're all off, they're all on. And technically, I don't think there should be a difference at that point between 225 area and this custom setup, but there seems to be. So autofocus, video autofocus performance, when you're just run and gun shooting, you want the most general, just grab focus as best as possible, as quickly as possible. In my experience, that seems to be the best setup. Now, that I'm not the first one to discover this, it's been all over YouTube. This is not news. So that is how I would advise setting it up. But I think that's the difference there. So if you want to have, if you know where your focus is going to be, use that one area, make it as small as you can, put it where it's supposed to be. If, of course, you don't, because things are bouncing around all over the place, try the difference between 225 and custom with everything turned off. But my own setup, what I usually use is let's back out of this. I have C1 set up, and you can see that there are no AF areas set. So that's my custom focus. That's what I usually use when I'm shooting video, and I just want it to quickly grab whatever it should be, whatever I think it should be grabbing. So that is how that's set up. I don't know if that's really the question that he was asking. Hopefully it was. Matt, hopefully that was the question. Tried to answer it for you. Let's see how we get. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Next question is from Roughneck Barbell. Does the battery grip, that's the BGGH5 for the GH5, have any effect on weatherproofing? How does it, or does it compromise the camera's weather guarding? Simple answer, has no effect. It is still a weatherproof device. So here's how I'm going to show this to you. This is what I wanted to show. This cable's all the way. So do I need, I'm still going to need that. Let's go to the remote camera. Boom, here, there we go. So this is the BGGH5 here, the battery grip. And if you look closely here, I don't know if you can be able to see this or not, but this is spongy. Can you kind of see how that's a little spongy there? I'm trying to push it down so you can see that it recesses and then pops back up a little bit. That's the weather sealing. So that's the only open contact to the bottom of the GH5, and it is weather sealed. And then this itself has the grommets, the rubber rings around the battery pack, so that's all rubberized in there as well. So you can kind of maybe see that a little bit. And that, and then the buttons, of course, are all weatherproof, just like the buttons on the camera are. So yeah, short answer is yes, it is still weatherproof. It is just as weatherproof without it. This is designed, obviously, for the GH5. It is designed to give you the same weatherproofing with or without it. So easy answer to that question. All right, next up is a question about Lumafusion. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Does Lumafusion do 120 FPS 1080p or 240 FPS at 720 for slow motion? Wonder if I can use my Hero 5 footage in there for that. Okay, so this question is not, the poster of this question, 001 El Pato, is kind of missing a little bit of understanding of how slow motion works, which is why I brought this up. Because the answer, as they're asking it, is no, Lumafusion doesn't do 240p output. But that's not what they need, and that's not the point of it. So if you're shooting slow motion, any camera, it doesn't matter if it's a Hero 5 or your GH5 or whatever, if you're shooting slow motion, you're shooting at a higher frame rate than normal. But the way you get slow motion is shooting at a higher frame rate and playing back at a normal frame rate. So let's make the math easy. Let's say you're shooting 30p, 30 frames per second. That's just your normal, that's what you're gonna do, 30p. You then set the camera to shoot 60p, but you're going to play it back at 30. You've now recorded twice as many frames as you need in that one given second. If you now play back every single frame, because you shot 60, but you play back at 30, it will take twice as long to play that back. So it will take 2 seconds instead of 1 second to play that 60 frames back. What was in the real world took 1 second, it will now take 2 seconds to play back. That's how you get slow motion. That's how you get good quality, real slow motion, not interpolated, the software adding frames to it. This is true slow motion. You're shooting more frames per second than you're going to play back at. So if you're shooting for 30, or you're going to be editing 30, you're outputting 30, but you shoot at 60, you get twice the speed, half speed, 2x slow motion. Let's do it that way, 2x slow motion. If you shoot at 120p, that's 4x slow motion. 240p, that's 8x, right? So it's 8 times as many frames as you need to play back in that 30. So when you do that, 240 divided by 30, you get 8. Did I do that right? And you have slow motion. So if you drop your clip that was shot on a camera like the GH5, or I don't have a Hero 5, but I'm assuming it's the same way, the wrapper, the file itself, is being told to play back at 30 frames. You don't have to go into your software and say, oh, I shot it at 60, but I want to play back at 30. the software sees that clip as a 30 frame per second clip. So you don't have to do anything. You just drop it on the timeline and it's automatically playing back in slow motion. And that will work in Lumafusion, it will work in Final Cut, Premiere, whatever you throw it at, that's the way it works. So when you shoot slow motion, the actual file, there's no indicator anywhere that that was shot in slow motion. The software thinks it was shot at 30p, but the camera knows that it shot it at 60p and put it in there in a 30p wrapper, telling the software to play back at 30 frames per second. I hope that answers that question. All right, next up. Next up, this is also about working with Lumafusion. Tech Life asks, how did you import the files when, oh, sorry. Wrong one, thank you. How did you import the files when I try on my iPad Pro, it only accepts MPEG-4 files 1080p. It won't read high quality 1080p or 4K, it doesn't show up. So this question isn't telling me how they shot it, where this content's coming from. So there's a couple different possible answers here. First of all, I have found that I know a lot of people are a bit confused about what their camera shoots and the quality of what they're getting, and for some reason believing that their camera might be shooting uncompressed video, or I've gotten questions that say, well, I want to shoot uncompressed. In video, it doesn't work that way. To shoot truly uncompressed in video requires literally big, huge RAIDs and a ton of cables from very, very high-end cameras running into them to capture an astonishing amount of data. So that's not how you shoot almost ever. I mean, pretty much nobody shoots that way. There's hardly a point to it. You're more likely these days to shoot RAW, which some cameras do support. But again, we're talking about really high-end cameras. Anyway, what your camera is shooting is most likely an MPEG-4 file. That MPEG-4 file is what gets read when you pop your SD card into your Mac, into your PC, into your iPad, whatever it is, that's the file that you're getting. So if you see an MP4, that's what your camera shot. Now, depending on your camera, you might be able to change the format. The GH5, you can switch between MP4 and MOV. The MOV is actually a MPEG-4 file. It's just a different wrapper. You can also set it to shoot AVC HD, I think that's right, which is a more compressed, considerably more compressed format, which is great for really, really long form stuff. So if you're shooting like a school play and you need 6 hours worth of, God, can you imagine a 6-hour school play? If you need a really, really long amount of shoot time, you can go to AVC HD. But for the most part, you're shooting MPEG-4. That's the standard. It's H2, I know there's a lot of, the 4 is the same, that's kind of coincidence, but you get H.264 and MPEG-4. They're not the same thing, but it's kind of they go together. You can Google that. But that's what pretty much every camera is shooting these days. Some cameras shoot MP5, H.265, what we talked about at the beginning of the show, which is going to be supported in macOS and iOS in the future, but MP4/H.264, that's what you're getting on most cameras. So that's what you're going to be importing. Now back to his question, he says it won't read high quality 1080p or 4K, it doesn't show up. So perhaps he didn't say what camera he's shooting with or what that really means by high quality. Perhaps he's misunderstanding and thinks that there's 2 files. Perhaps he's misunderstanding and thinks that there is I don't know, I don't even know what it would be. Maybe his camera has another high quality mode or another mode that shoots in something that the iPad simply isn't reading. So regardless of what the reason is, if you want to edit on your iPad, run some tests first, make sure that whatever you're shooting with your camera, whatever settings you have it set to, will be read on the iPad. That's really all it comes down to. It doesn't matter what camera you have, whether it's a Lumix or a Nikon or a Canon, whatever, it doesn't matter. Shoot a video clip, try and import it. If it doesn't import, if you pop it in there and it shows nothing, it shows there's no image there, then go back and look at the settings and see what you might be able to change to make it compatible. But for all intents and purposes, pretty much anything that any DSLM camera is going to shoot for video these days should be totally readable on the iPad. So sorry, this is one of those cases of give me more information, I can help you better, but hopefully that was at least somewhat partially helpful. All right, last question I think that was in here is from KingsRX, aka Heidi from Calabasas. Again, not totally sure I understand the question, but I'm going to try and answer it. I'm stuck with zebras. On my GX8, I could easily turn down, I'm going to assume that means turn off, and see the results, but not on my GH5. Am I doing something wrong? So, not fully understanding the question, I'm just going to show how zebras work in GH5, and hopefully that will answer the question for you. So, GH5, I am still plugged in. Right? Yes, that's what we want, GH5. Okay, let's let me turn this back on. And here we go, and that's up. Okay, so zebra settings in here are under the, I found it earlier, I think monitor display, so custom wrench monitor display, yep, zebra pattern, there we go, I've already set up. So it's page 4 of 6, so backing up here, where the wrench with the C on it, the custom menu, monitor display, and then zebra pattern, page 4 of 6. Go into there, you have off or set, zebra 1 and zebra 2, so this basically turns them on. Zebra 1 on, zebra 2 on, turn it off or set. When we go to set, you have 2 menus here, zebra 1 and zebra 2, what they're set to. So zebra 1, I can set it anything from 95% down to 50%. Why doesn't it go higher? Oh, it must be the mode that I'm in, because some modes you're in, some video modes you're in, it'll actually go up to 105%. So let's leave that. Oops, what did I have it set to? Was it 75? I think I had it set at 75. Zebra 2, same thing. You have your options. You turn it off or go all the way up. If you turn it off here, then when you enable zebra, it's only going to go on and off. It's not going to cycle through them. So normally when you have your zebras on and you turn it on, it turns on zebra 1, and then it turns on zebra 2, and then it goes off. So it's a cycle through those 3 stages, if you will. If you turn off one of them, then you only have 1 stage, so now it's just a toggle off, on, off, on. Handy to know. If you don't want 2 levels of zebra, you can turn one of them off completely. Anyway, so back in here, I'm going to set this one to, let's say that one, I guess that's the one I set to 95%. Okay, so now when I'm in here and I toggle my zebras, there's zebra at 75, zebra at 95. And you may recall from earlier videos that I have set my zebra shortcut to the FN4 button. And this is something I've gone into in length in the training. Let's go here. So this is the FN4 button right there. That's the one that I have programmed my zebras to. So I push that, so that toggles it between off, the setting 1, setting 2, and back to off again. And that's it. So that's kind of all there is to zebra. So hopefully that answers the question for Heidi. If not, post a follow-up question, and we'll try to address it later on. Oh, there was one more question. That was 2 more questions. Okay. Thought I had more questions than I did. Let's get this back up, and here we go. Is there any way to push, this is from SkateTube, who's been a regular on the show, is there a way to push ISO on the GX8 lower than 200? Excellent, excellent question. This applies not just to the GX8, but to just about every Lumix camera, probably every Lumix camera. So let me swap out my cables again, and hope I don't have to go back to the GH5 again. I really should have reordered these questions. Okay, back to the GX8. Plug this guy in, and turn that on. Waiting for it to sync, waiting for it to sync, waiting for it to sync. There it goes. Okay. Oh, I need to turn my menu back on. I turned that off. Let me turn that on before I do this. Display on. There we go. Okay. So here's the GX8. If I push the ISO button, you'll see right now that my lowest limit is 200 and my highest limit is 25,600. Okay. So if I go into the camera menu, and then on page 6 of 8, you'll see it says extended ISO. It's currently set to off. If I turn that on, now when I go back into ISO, I can go, can I go higher? 25.6, I think that's what I was at before, but it goes lower. It goes lower, 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 lower. There we go. Low 100, low 125, low 160, and then 200 is your baseline again. So that is there. Now, I have asked before, because I didn't know why not just have that there all the time? Why make it an extended ISO thing? And what I have learned, and you would think, if you came to the days of film, lower ISO equals better, right? Well, equals cleaner. No question about it, right? You're going to get less grain in lower ISO. That's it. In digital, that's not necessarily the case. There's a native ISO, which Panasonic doesn't tend to publish, so I really have no idea what it would be on this camera. But let's assume that it's 400 because that seems to be fairly universal. It might be 800, might be 400. Let's assume it's 400. You can bring it down to 200, and Panasonic engineers have determined that that's fine. But if you push it all the way down to 100, you might lose some dynamic range. And that is why it is an extended option, because they don't want people to just default there and end up losing dynamic range. So if you're in an environment where it's controlled, you are shooting in a lit, controlled environment, then perfectly fine shooting that way. But if you're out and about, you're shooting in a varying light situation where things are changing, so aka outdoors in the real world as opposed to in a studio, Panasonic and I would advise not going down into that lower range, because you want that extra dynamic range should some big highlight, some super dark shadow enter your scene. You don't want to lose it. You don't want to get clipped. You don't have that data clipped off. But by having the extended ISO on, you might lose some of it. So if your environment's controlled, you know things aren't changing, go right ahead. You can check the exposure, you can check your histogram, you can make sure that everything's looking spot on. Go right ahead, no problem. If things are dynamic, don't go that way. Okay, hopefully that helps. Now the last question. This is a good one. This is a GH5 question. This is a GH5 question. So smart today. I blame Monday and haven't been on vacation. That's my excuse. All right, this question is, unfortunately, I don't have a great answer. I'm going to give you the answer. It's a real answer. I wish it was a better answer. I wish I knew where the other end of my HDMI cable is. There we go. All righty, back into here. The question is there any way to reprogram that back dial, that's the one behind the, under the thumb, to control the gain/ISO in manual movie mode? I don't want to change my shutter often in movie mode. I agree. But having the back dial for ISO control would be very useful. I agree again. I can't find anywhere in the menu where I can reprogram it. Okay, so I'll show you where you do reprogram these things. This is not going to be the answer you want, but I'll show you what you can do. So we're synced. We are up. Let's go into here. All right, into the menu. And, I probably should be able to see my screen too. Into the menu, we go into the custom wrench, go to operation, and then down to dial set. So this is page 3 of 6 of the, backing up, custom wrench menu, operation, dial set, page 3 of 6. In here, there's a few things you can do. You see it says assign dial, F for aperture, f-stop, or shutter speed. You can swap whether you want the rear to be aperture or shutter speed. Okay, so there's that. Rotation direction, which direction do you want to rotate them? Okay. Do you want exposure compensation turned on? So when you're in a mode that is a partially auto mode, so if you're in aperture priority, shutter priority, do you want that rear dial to do exposure compensation? I love this feature. That is absolutely on for me, so there's that. And then here's the one that we're looking at, dial operation switch setup. So you look at here, you go, oh, look. It shows ISO on the back dial. That is exactly what I want. Yay. But no. So here's, it's weird. And I haven't quite figured out the benefit of this. But by default, when you set up your GH5, take it out of the box, brand new machine, the FN1 button, so that's the, let's do this here, let's put this into place, and there we go. The FN1 button, so you see it right there. When you push that, that by default activates the toggle to enable these rear and front dial to enter whatever I've just set in this mode. So in this case, rear dial ISO, front dial white balance. So front dial, I can make it, let's just change it from white balance. Let's change it to, I don't know, what do we do, something else? Photo style, why not? Something totally different. Okay, so rear dial is ISO, front dial is photo style. So how do I get to it? Well, if I hit my FN1 button, it brings up, well, that was coincidence, photo style, but it brings up my Q menu because that's what I've reprogrammed it to do. But I'm going to press and hold on the FN1 button. Remember that, just I know you guys love this one. It's so awesome. Don't forget, you can reprogram any function button, focus, there we go, by pressing and holding. So I'm going to press and hold 1001, 1002, pop, and it just popped up the menu, and that popped up this menu here. So I'm going to do it again. Press and hold, 1001, 1002, it pops this up, and now I can choose FN1 button set. I can choose whatever I want it to be. It is set to Q menu because that's what I want mine to, but what I'm looking for is here, dial operation switch. So now when I turn that on, let me go back into the menu. With that on, you see it says dial operation switch setup, so the names match. When I push the button, that's what those dials are going to go to. So now I push that FN1, and you notice in the bottom right corner, you have the little rear dial showing it changes ISO, front dial changes photo mode. So hit it again. Now I can just change my ISO this way. So okay, that's cool, right? That's kind of what you wanted, except that you have to push that FN1 button every single time, which to me seems utterly pointless because right above that FN1 button is the dedicated ISO button and the dedicated white balance button. So what I would do is not set it up to do that, which is the way it's out of the box, which seems kind of a waste of a button. If I want to change my ISO, I'm going to hit that ISO button right there. I'm going to hit that ISO button, which then brings up the ISO controls. So I hit the ISO button, there's my ISO controls, and now I can change it. So the default setting for that is, I think, largely useless for that FN1 button, which is why I've reprogrammed mine, and for mine, I've set it to the Q menu. So I'm going to set it back again. Let's go back in here, press and hold the FN1 button until the menu pops up. Scroll up, Q menu it is. And now when I push FN1, I get my Q menu, my custom Q menu. Now, if you're wondering how in the heck why is he, what's the purpose of that? Why is that Q menu look the way it does? Then I must remind you that all of that is here in the GH5 training. That is something I go into in quite a bit of depth in the GH5 training. Go to GH5training.com or head over to lynda.com/LinkedIn Learning, where you can view the entire course as a subscriber. So that's that. So not the answer you wanted. I totally get what you're asking for. I think it would be great if I'm in manual shooting movie mode. I don't want to change my shutter speed or shutter angle. I get that. I usually don't. But changing my ISO would be quite handy. I would like to see that there as well. In fact, I'm going to file that as a feature request because I think that would be brilliant. It's probably already been filed, but we're going to do it anyway. Okay, that was the last question there. So now, let's see what's going on in the comments, and we'll wrap this up. So whoever it was in the beginning, I said if you've got your question, throw it up here at the end again. Now's your chance to throw that up. We're not going to break this out to a second show thing because this is all Q&A, so there we go. All right, let's see here. Let me scroll back a bit, and let's see here. Where are we? Scroll back. A lot of questions. Here, I guess I'll put that up now. Okay, we were past that. Here we go. Oh, good. Bart Johnson answering the earlier question. The Elgato Cam Link was only $130. That's awesome. That's for converting HDMI to presumably USB 3. Super. That's a great price. Bernardo says, so best travel 2-lens setup. Oh, Bernardo, there's your question. Okay, so best travel 2-lens setup. 14-140 super zoom plus 1 prime, or both have 2.8 lenses, 12-35 and 35-100. The problem with this question like this is that there is no one answer. Best is very determinant on what you like to shoot. First of all, did you say shooting video or stills? You did not, so we're going to assume a mix. I'm a fan of primes, but you can't argue the convenience of zooms, right? So on my trip that I just came back from, I traveled with 3 lenses, actually a lot more than that, but the 3 lenses that I carried everywhere was the 15mm Leica, so a 30mm equivalent, the 25mm Zhongyi, so a 50mm equivalent, and the 42.5 f1.7 teeny tiny little pocket-sized lens for portrait, longer stuff. And I just swapped. I don't mind swapping lenses. I know that's annoying as heck to a lot of people, so have a zoom, make that easy. I was shooting mostly, actually I shouldn't say mostly stills, I was switching it up, shooting stills and video, but I was fine with that. I wanted to have the shallower depth of field, I wanted to have that better low light performance. That's just me, but I don't mind swapping. If I'm doing a shoot that is specifically video, kind of exclusive video, I'm probably more likely to shoot with zooms because I don't need as shallow depth of field when shooting video. Or when you're shooting video, if you've got really shallow depth of field and something moves and you're out of focus, that can be really annoying. It's fine if you're shooting a film, like, okay, position 1, focus 1, locked, action, go, great. But when you're just out shooting kind of loggy style, if you have really shallow depth of field, too much of your video is going to be out of focus, so stay away from it. So then using zooms where you don't have quite a shallow depth of field because it's not quite as fast is just perfectly fine. So no easy answer. If you want a pro setup, pro 2-lens video setup, absolutely the 12-35 and the 35-100, that's your combo. Don't even argue it. That's what you've got. If you want something a bit more convenient with one lens, the 12-60 Leica, I've talked about that a whole bunch. I'm really liking that lens. And if you don't mind swapping out lenses, then go for a bag full of primes, like I just did on my trip. And keep in mind, this is tiny little Ona bag. GX85, 15mm, 25mm, and the 42.5. Did everything I needed. It was brilliant. So hopefully that helps. All righty, let's see here. Matt Nelson says, cool, thanks for saying you'll address my question about the 225 area versus single area focus question if the zone size is the same. Hopefully, okay, Matt, I'll get through the comments since you were here. That's great. Thank you for tuning in. If I didn't answer your question, then you can elaborate and I can try to answer it for you. Brent Kaplan says, is there a way for you to reach out to Panasonic and find out why it is so hard to find the Panasonic DMW AC10 AC adapter in stock, and the cable part can't even get it from Panasonic website? Okay. Seriously, what are you talking about? No idea what power adapter that's for. What that's for. If we're talking about an AC adapter, then buy a third-party one. Honestly, they're fine. I've had no problem with it, so just buy a third-party one. Ryan reminding people to put PhotoJoseph into the questions. Please do. John McCabe says, what lens would you use on the GH5 to capture a high school football game from the stands? 100 to 400 Leica from the stands. I used the 35 to 100 with a 4x zoom, like a 4x magnifier, you mean? Oof. And it was the right focal length, but not sharp at all. Yeah. What do you call them? Doublers? What is this called? lens doublers, whatever, never going to be as good as, what? Extenders, lens extenders, is that what they're called? I forget what they're called. Anyway, definitely not as good a quality. They do in a pinch. But I would say if you can get your hands on the 100 to 400, it's a very expensive lens. It's almost $2,000, so it's not something you just buy for giggles. But you can always rent it. Don't forget that. You can always rent a lens. Borrowlenses.com and lensrentals.com. Borrowlenses and lensrentals.com. Those are the two big online renters, rental houses. Of course, you can walk into, if you live in LA, you can walk into Sammy's. If you live in New York, you walk into B&H. But those two online ones are great resources for it. I don't know that if they have that lens. I would assume they do, but I don't know. But that's what I would do. Rent it to try it out. Lower cost would be the 100 to 300 zoom, which I don't have here, but there's a new Mark II version of that, which I'm hearing very good things about. So that might be an option as well, which I do believe costs quite a bit less, but it's not going to be as long as that 100 to 400. The other thing that I'll point out, and here's just a great kind of in general. So you've got the 35 to 100. Okay, what are you doing with the pictures? Are you just posting them on social media? If you are, remember you're shooting a 21 or 20 and a half or whatever the heck it is megapixel file. You don't need that on Facebook. Crop in, right? Even if your shot has most of the football field and your son, I think that's what you said, is playing and they're down there, and you want to just crop in, right? If you can get even 1024 wide chunk of pixels out of that scene, that's probably better than trying to use a double or teleconverter. Teleconverter, that's it. Trying to use a teleconverter on there. Don't forget that you can crop. So just a side thing there. And if you're shooting video, if you're shooting 4K video, you can do a slight punch in. If you're shooting 1080p, you can crop all the way into 1080p on the sensor so that you do get more than a 2x zoom out of your lens when shooting video. So just other things to consider. We talk about that in the GH5 training as well. Alrighty, next up, hello to Norway as well. Sonic Palette says it's officially a part of the GH5 family. Awesome, welcome. I'm noticing a lot of noise in my shadows shooting Cine D, ISO no higher than 800. Cine D, let me think, there's this, what are the Cine modes? I forget what the differences are. There's Cine D, which is dynamic. Oh, right, so that Cine D and Cine V, let me pull them up here. I always forget. Cine D and Cine V. Okay, Cine D is meant to represent more closer to what you get if you're shooting log. So you need to expose for the highlights and crush your shadows down. That's the way you shoot log. I have a whole thing on that in my GH5 training. So since you're a GH5 owner, if you don't yet have the training, please do consider that. Do check that out. Go over to GH5training.com and consider purchasing that, or head over to lynda.com and you can view the whole thing there as well. But Cine D is meant to be shot like log, so it's kind of the closest thing you're going to get to log without actually paying for the log upgrade. If that's not getting you what you want, then try shooting in a different mode. Try shooting Cine V, which is a more film-like look, so there's a knee on the blacks. The blacks are already crushed down. That should hide the noise that's showing up in there. But it's all about how you shoot it. So you got to shoot for the highlights and pull down in post if you're shooting that mode. Cine D is not a mode to shoot and deliver. It's shoot, grade, and deliver. Keep that in mind, just like shooting log. Matt Nelson, yep, good. Thanks for your thought. Good. Okay, good. I answered your question. Josh App says, thank you for your answer. You're quite welcome. Wondering about the battery grip. Fantastic. Bart says, where'd it go? Come back here. Bart says, I see you're using TubeBuddy. I am using TubeBuddy. I just signed up for it, and it's shown me a lot of stuff I've been doing wrong. Got a lot of work to do. Yeah, big shout out to TubeBuddy. No affiliate association whatsoever, but TubeBuddy is a tool that helps you to figure out how to tag, how to keyword, how to properly set up your videos on YouTube for maximum discovery, which obviously is what it's all about, getting people to see your videos. TubeBuddy's been awesome. It's a paid service, so if you are trying to grow your channel, check out TubeBuddy. They have lots of good live videos as well that go on. All right, Sonic Palette says, oh, no, it doesn't. David Zung says, can you explain GH5 waveform levels? There are no numbers, no numbers on levels. I know, I can, and I do. Right, oh, not right there, right there. I have a whole thing about it. That's what I'm not going to go into here because that, my friend, took a huge amount of prep and research to do. And so I'm going to say for that information, I'm going to make you pony up. Sorry. That's a big, tough question, and I have a very good answer to it, but you got to watch the full-on training. All right, Burns Tech, have you tried setting up dual camera view side by side on your switcher for showing two things at once? Oh, sure. Yeah, I can do, I have a lot of split screen setups, right? I mean, like this is a split screen setup. This is a, oops, that is a picture-in-picture setup. But I have to build the presets in advance. And then I do things like this. I'm like, hey guys, how's it going? Because I'm smart that way. Yeah, I don't have a split screen with the remote camera, which is that one there, and the GH5 screen. I don't have that set up. I do have, did I still have set up? I had one where it's like this GH5 menu showed up there. I think I moved it. I only have, what, 16 on a panel, and I try not to have to switch between panels. Anyway, no, I can set it up. I don't. Say Libby. Okay, there's Bernardo's question again, which we answered. Excellent. Peter Blake says, do you know of an iPad app that will show the file type of a photo? For example, JPEG or ORF. I had an issue importing to Lightroom, wanted to check the file type before import. Yes, I do. Okay, let's see here. I think this is here. This is here. We'll find out if that dropping of my iPad was bad or not for it. Let's see here. Let me open this guy up. There's two that I use. I still have both installed. I don't know why. But let me get this set up, and then I will let me find a picture. See if we can find a raw. Oh, I'm in videos. That's not what I want. Last import. That'll work. And nope, those are all JPEGs. I want one that has raw. I need a raw file because I want to show you how this works. Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. Yes, I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm not going to be able to show you a raw file because all these things that I imported into my iPad on my trip, I shot raw plus JPEG. And so in the photos roll, the camera roll, photos roll, whatever, we're going to only see the JPEG because that's what Photos for iOS does. It only shows you the JPEG. The raw is hidden behind it. Kind of annoying, but it does. But it doesn't matter. Let me show you the tool. So go to iOS only. I tap on, we got it here. The share, okay, right, I can't show you the share icon right now, but there's the share icon at the top, so that comes up, there we go. So I tap the share icon, this comes up, and there's two that I have. Down in the bottom, let's move this up, you've got MetaPho, can I zoom in more? I forget how to do this. Anyway, you can see on the bottom there, MetaPho and PhotoMeta. So MetaPho or PhotoMeta. Either one of those, they do basically the same thing. Tap one, and it brings up image information. So you can see the type up there, it's JPEG, the size, the megapixel, everything else is all listed in there. Let me try the other one, PhotoMeta, different UI. Here we go, a little bit more information in here. And up in the top right, you see there it says JPEG. So that's how that works. So let me see if I can find, I bet I do have a raw file in here. Oh, it's downloading the file. Okay, this is a raw file, at least it should be because it's in a raw album. It is downloading it because it wasn't here. And, nope, it's also showing the JPEG, darn. Well, I don't know. I've got raw files in there somewhere. But anyway, that's the tool to use. So PhotoMeta or MetaPho. Look those up in the App Store. I don't think either of them are free, although I could be wrong. But those are great tools for that. So that'll allow you to check your file format at any time. Okay, what else we got? Rob Cowan says, considering the G85, awesome, what one lens do you recommend to get with it, not a kit lens? You got to give me more info what you want to shoot with it. Give me a little more info, Rob, of what you're going to shoot, and I will try to answer that for you. Sonic Palette says, what's the best way to achieve shallow depth of field for corporate interviews? Shoot with a big fast lens. I currently am using the Voigtlander 25mm, but want as much drop off as possible. Is that the 0.95 one? In which case, get close and close to your subject, wide open, obviously, and make your background as far away as possible, right? The difference, if camera, subject, do this. Hello, there we go. Okay, camera, subject, background, right? The closer, the bigger this distance and the less this distance is going to give you the best bokeh in the background. Now, it can get too much, right? It could get so far away that it's just one big mush. If you want some kind of, you can kind of tell that it's an office scene back there, but it's not distracting, you're gonna have to play with your distances a little bit. But that's what it's all about, is the distance between the camera and the subject, distance from the subject to the background, and then the aperture on the lens. There's no formula. Maybe there's a formula. There's no right answer. It just depends on the look that you want. The background might be too out of focus, not out of focus enough. You got to play with it. But if you're shooting with that Voigtlander, if that's the 25 f/0.95, just like my Zhongyi f/0.95, then you've certainly got the capability for really, really shallow depth of field. Too shallow, right? Because if you're shooting an interview, people don't do this when they talk. People don't hold perfectly still like statues. They move in and out, which is why this setup right now that we're on, is not wide open. If I shot this, if this is just the 12 to 35 at 2.8, if I shot this wide open, if I was here, I'd be out of focus. If I was here, I'd be out of focus. I don't want that. I want to be able to stay in focus. So I've got pretty good range of focus in here. Unfortunately, what that means is my background here is also in focus. It's right here, right? My background is close to me. I'm touching it right now. But it's a solid gray thing, so it doesn't really matter that it's out of focus. If I wanted to knock out a few walls and have the rest of my studio out of focus in the background, that'd be great. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, so that's basically all I can tell you. Fast lens, get close to your subject, put your background far away, and you're going to have super shallow depth of field. All righty. Graham Cooper, hello, my friend. What have you got to say? Had a coffee this morning. Good. I wish I had more. Watching the vlog chapter in the GH5 course on Linda. Excellent. Excellent stuff. Great explanation of dynamic range, exposing, using scopes, etc. Great job, fellow. Well, thank you, Mr. Graham Cooper. Always nice to hear that. And so that helps the chap who's asking earlier about the waveforms. There you go. See? It is approved by Mr. Graham Cooper. And if he approves it, you know it's good because he doesn't like anything or anybody. So if he likes this, I must have done something right. J. Diggity says, what are your thoughts on Nikon's new D850 that they recently revealed? Looks pretty bitchin'. I watched a couple of videos about it. It looks like a pretty sweet camera, for sure. You know, it's still a big, huge DSLR, but in the world of big, huge DSLRs, it looks pretty awesome, gotta say. Burnsteck says, okay, just curious about the split screen. Oh yeah, okay, the split screen thing. I figured you pretty much had it maxed out with presets. Yeah, I can do more pages of presets. It's just then I will get confused. You've seen it before where I go to switch something and I'm like, oh, whoops, wait, that's not the, oh, wait, where's the, oh, I got the wrong. Believe me, I got enough stupid buttons up here. And because my stupid buttons are just a bunch of colored chiclets, it can be very hard to hit the right one sometimes. If I haven't hit it in a while and I go, that's the one, no wait, that's not it, and then I have to read it, which is why I also sometimes when I switch over to the camera, I'll say, oh, let's go iOS only. No, that's what the button says. That's my label, but that's not what it's showing. What it actually, I should change the name of it. It is my my decimator converter where I can send anything into it. And so when I'm messing around switching sources, plugging a GX8 and a GH5, the iPad, I just run it all through the decimator because I don't have to worry about what the camera is set to. It all just gets converted. So I should probably change the label of that. Anyway. Shiva Kumar says, let's go bring this back. Shiva Kumar says, see, there we go. Lost it again. Joined a bit late. Well, yes, you did. But one quick update. In the Friday video, you mentioned about IS getting disabled. Yes, when custom white balance is set on the GH5. I tried on mine and it didn't give any such issue. Excellent. Thank you for reporting that, Shiva Kumar. So there are people who are getting this issue and people who are not. I don't know what the answer is. Call Panasonic. That's the only answer I can give you right now if you are having that problem. Rob Cohen says, shoot more video, 4K, hopefully also some landscapes. Oh, that was to go along with the question of what lens. Okay, so you are doing, okay, you really want a general kind of all over. You want a general purpose lens, buy the new Leica 12 to 60. Where'd it go? Here. It's a great lens. You want the most general purpose, do it all lens, the Leica 12 to 60, which is a kit lens with the GH5. Now, this is different than the kit 12 to 60 that comes with a lot of other Lumix cameras. This is the Leica version. That's the one you want. If you're going to spend money on a good all-around lens, I highly recommend this. You may recall earlier videos, I said I'm probably not going to be recommending this lens because it's a variable aperture, but now that I've had it and used it a lot, I love it. It's a really, really good all-purpose lens. If I had to use one lens, that is most likely the one that it would be. Okay, whew. That is going to be today's show. I am about to pass out. It's been an hour already. My goodness. Hopefully I answered some good questions for you guys. Hopefully I helped out a few folks in there. Let's hear what else we want to talk about today. Ooh, later on today, if you are going to be around for this, I am doing another Affinity Photo demo. This is on Mac OS and it's on stacking. Stacking is quite a fun thing. You can do star trails like this, and actually right after this show, I'm going to grab my little Spark and I'm going to head up to the waterfall. And one of the things you can do with stacking is take pictures like of a waterfall, a whole bunch of photos where the camera's not moving, but the subject is the water, and stack them together and choose the right blend mode, and you get what appears to be a long exposure photo, which is exactly the same thing that the iOS 11 is going to do when they have the new feature in there that you've probably seen demoed where you do a picture and it stacks and combines them together to give you that flowing waterfall thing. I'm going to go out with the Spark and see if it's steady enough to shoot a sequence of the waterfall so I can do that from the air, because I think that'd be really cool. So we'll find out live at, I think, 3 o'clock this afternoon, or 2 o'clock, something like that. I don't know. It's this afternoon. Look at the schedule. Go over to photoapps. Here, let's just look at it. Go to photoapps.expert/live. Let's bring this up full screen here, and this is where you're going to go at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So Monday, August 28th, that is today, right? Yes. 3 p.m. Pacific. We'll be right here showing that off, and it will be lots of fun. Do a little experimenting. So we'll do something with star trails, because I already got that set up. I shot something else in Stockholm that I'm going to try. I haven't even tried it yet, so I will try it before we go live. So if you don't see this live, then you know that it didn't work out. But there was this beautiful alleyway, whatever, between two buildings. Beautiful. And a nice light. Oh, it's beautiful. There's all these people. And I thought, ooh, I know what I'll do. So I held the camera as steady as I could, and I fired off maybe 20 shots as people moved around, because one of the things you can do with focus stacking, with image stacking, is remove people from the scene, right, by blending the parts of the picture together where there's no motion. It's weird, and I have no idea if it's going to work, but we're going to try. And that's that. Okay, that's today. Whew. Just simply, Brandon says, watching my live stream is like watching coffee brew. I'm going to hope that means it's not like slow drip, drip, drip. Hope it's more like a shot of espresso. It's just... On that note, I'm out of here, guys. Take care of yourselves. Have yourselves a wonderful week. We'll see you tomorrow. And that's it. Bye-bye.